I cry in public. And not because I'm weak, but because I'm free. When was the last time you cried in public or stopped yourself from crying because you were afraid of what people would think? For me, public tears are a revolutionary act, and I want to tell you why. We always begin with gratitude, so I want to thank you for making the journey here and let you know that I'm very honored to have your energy and your presence here in this space. Peace. I am LA, licensed therapist, holistic wellness coach, and guide, and the creator of this channel, Reconnect with You. There are a couple of stories that come to mind that I want to share with y'all around this topic and just what inspired it. And one of them took place recently. I was working out of a coffee shop, which I do from time to time. And one of the tasks that I was working on was writing my money autobiography. And it was from a book called The Energy of Money, which is a really good book. And I can link that below if you are interested in checking that out. But to support you in creating or writing your money autobiography, the book offers 20 plus reflection prompts. And one of the reflection prompts was asking if I had ever given or received money. So I was writing this reflection or reflecting on this prompt as a part of my money autobiography. And as I was reflecting, I got really emotional because what I was writing about was something that I had forgotten about, something that happened to me during childhood and something that went on for a really long time. And I remember it happening, but I have not thought about it in a really, really long time. And also just didn't expect to get emotional from that. And I was sitting in the booth at the coffee shop and I just started crying. And initially it started with, tears were just rolling down my eyes. And then it was a full blown cry where it was like, okay, I need to put my pen down and I need to ground myself and really sit with the emotions that are coming up for me as I'm reflecting and journaling. And I was feeling a lot of different things inside. I was feeling really sad. I felt angry, all of which I wrote about in my reflection. And I remember someone that was sitting, I think they were to my right, they checked in with me and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." And I, in short, shared with them, I'm reading this book, which ironically they had also, I don't know if they read the book, but they had heard of it. And I shared with them, I'm reading this book, and one of the reflection prompts just made me really emotional because it took me back to something that happened in childhood that I hadn't thought about. Basically the same thing that I just shared with y'all. But they were really supportive, but they asked first, they were like, "Are you okay?" And so I just really appreciated my ability to express that kind of emotion in public, but also to have someone else notice that and to care enough to at least check in and say, "Hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? Do you need anything?" So that's the first instance that comes to mind. And that actually happened, that was last week. So that was very recent. The other instance that comes to mind for me happened last year. And this happened at Trader Joe's. And I'm a big supporter and fan of Trader Joe's. I don't think I've ever talked about Trader Joe's on this channel, but this story took place at Trader Joe's. And I remember I walked into the store and Hey Ya by Outkast started playing on the radio. And if you've ever shopped at Trader Joe's, you know that it's a vibe in there. Like there's always really upbeat and positive energy. All of the Trader Joe's that I've gone to have fire playlists. So there's always music that is playing, and that likely is helping to create that vibe, that positive vibe, and just that welcoming vibe that they have at Trader Joe's. But this song, Hey Ya by Outkast, has a particularly, it has an impact on me, I should say. And that's because my bird friend and companion, whose name is Buddy Eli, transitioned a little over a year ago. I know it was over a year ago. And Hey Ya by Outkast is the song that he and I were like dancing to and jamming to shortly before he transitioned. And I remember hearing this song on the radio and I got emotional when I remember I was grabbing my cart and, I started crying. Same thing or similar thing that happened at the coffee shop. The tears were flowing. And then I wiped my face and thought I was going to continue shopping. And my emotions were like, nah. I tried to, move throughout the store. And I remember I had got over to the wine section and I just broke down. I'm talking about, I was weeping, like bawling, crying, like I couldn't catch my breath. And it was so emotional for me because this was tied to a really deep loss that I was still processing. And even in this moment, as of the recording of this video, I'm still processing that grief. And I remember, and I'm sharing this story in particular because I remember thinking about how that is one of the deepest emotional moments that I've had in public. And it was to the point where I could not stop myself from crying. And that was uncomfortable for me because if I'm in the privacy of my own home, or if I'm at least by myself, that's one thing. And I'm all for crying in public. And so it didn't make me feel uncomfortable in that sense. But to be so vulnerable and to feel so raw, and to do that in public in a way where I won't say I was forced to, but because I literally could not stop myself from crying. So I had to surrender to the emotions that were coming up for me in that moment. And I gave myself permission to do that. And I was just feeling a lot of pain. I remember when I had those tears, it was just a lot of pain, a lot of grief, just feelings of loss. And I think there were like 2 customers that came to check on me, a couple of the store associates, someone brought me a box of Kleenex, which I really needed. I typically will keep travel Kleenex like in my purse. I didn't have mine on me that day. I remember actually when I first walked in the store and started crying, I used the sleeve of my jacket to wipe my eyes because I didn't have my Kleenex. And I remember, so I had to, my foot fell asleep and I had to move my leg, and my singing bowl is sitting in front of me. But I just remember feeling really held and cared for, first by myself, because I allowed myself to feel and go really into the depths of all of the emotion that was coming up for me. And I just felt really seen. I felt cared for, and I felt loved. I've always gotten really good vibes at Trader Joe's, but this was a particularly sensitive moment for me. And it was, I think, really heartwarming that I was able to be in such a raw and vulnerable state and to be seen and to be taken care of in that way. One of the associates brought me some Kleenex. Another one actually gave me some flowers. They went to their flower section and gave me some flowers. I actually still have a picture of the flowers. And I just really appreciated that, because I think that sometimes we see things happening to people, or people crying, or in whatever state they're in, and people will just walk by. They'll kind of ignore it or keep going. And so this was just a really heartwarming moment. Those are I have some other stories that I could share with y'all, but those are the 2 that I felt called to share and that really came to mind with this topic. As far as the deeper why behind this topic, I want to share with you that I grew up in an environment where my emotional expression and my emotions were suppressed. So I grew up in fix your face environment, in a stop crying before I give you something to cry about environment. And that caused me to, once I left home as an adult, I had experienced that for several years, and I had learned to not allow myself to feel certain emotions, that it wasn't safe, that it wasn't okay, that it was a form of weakness. So when I think about me as an adult, allowing myself to cry in public, wherever I am, if I feel moved to cry and I feel or experience emotions to the extent of needing to cry, I allow that to come out. And for me, every time I do that, I'm saying to my younger self, it's okay for you to feel. I give you permission to feel. Your feelings are important and valid. And that's why I do it. So it's a form of revolution for me. And I mean that. It really does make me feel like I am shifting something really big for my younger self, and also just for other people. And I can always tell when there are people who react to my emotions in public who are not used to seeing that, or they may not be experiencing that with themselves or allowing themselves to experience that. And I've actually had people share that with me verbally. And I think that it's a form of liberation. It also builds this sense of trust with myself, of like, I got you. It's okay. You can cry. Like, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to be here with you. The only difference is that I'm in public. And I think that showing, being that vulnerable in public is a form of making authentic and building authentic connections with others, even if it's unspoken. Even, obviously there are people that have come to check on me if they've seen me crying, or that have, maybe asked, are you okay? Or what's going on? But then there are other people who I've just maybe made eye contact with, maybe people who have just like smiled at me or gave me a kind look. And so it really does help to build connection. But I want to be clear that I'm not out crying in public to make friends. Like that's not what it's about. It is really about my relationship with myself. It is about a boundary that I've set with myself because of the environment that I grew up in. Like, I am not going to treat you like that. You may have grown up in an environment where you couldn't cry, or crying was wrong, or you couldn't feel sad, or if you felt this, it was seen as disobedience or disrespect. But I, like my adult self, I am not going to treat you that way. So it really is a way of reclaiming my connection to my emotions. It is also helping me trust myself to feel and to be with those feelings, and also to not be unkind to myself by forcing myself to not feel or not allowing myself to feel. And I have just found a lot of healing and transformation in that. There's also a sense of peace. When I'm out in public and I may experience some emotion come over me, I don't feel, there's no fear there. Like, I'm not judging myself for feeling. I'm not worried about how other people might perceive me, because this is just me with myself. In the sense that there's even been times when I'm out in public and I may get emotional. My experience is that it's just me and me right now. I'm not thinking about, oh, this person's looking at me, or this person might think that. It's me and me right now. And I think that's just a beautiful way of being with yourself, of caring for yourself, of holding yourself in whatever emotions might be coming up for you. So that is the deeper why behind this topic. And just saying a little bit more about how others have reacted, I want to share micro story, a funny micro story. I was talking to someone about this topic not too long ago. I was talking about crying in public, and I said to them, and they looked at me crazy, but I was dead serious. I was like, yeah, I'll cry anywhere. I was like, I'll cry anywhere. And I mean that. I can't think of anywhere that would be inappropriate, that I would deem as inappropriate for me to cry at. And I remember sharing that with them, and I was like, oh, well, I wouldn't cry in an interview. And I was like, wait, actually I have. I have cried in an interview. And that interview, I remember that job interview took place a couple of months after a very traumatic event happened that I talk about in my TED Talk, which I will link down below if you want to check that out. But this job interview happened after that, and it was just it was a big deal. And this went on and broke up my family and everything. It was just a big deal. Without me going into more details, it was a big deal, and it had a huge impact on me and my functioning at the time. But I remember when I shared, I was like, yeah, I'll cry anywhere. They looked at me like I was an alien, like I had just said something really wrong. And I think that's because showing that level of emotion, especially in public, is foreign to a lot of people. A lot of people are like, oh, I'll wait till I get home to cry. Or, the saying, oh, they're going to cry in the car. I've cried in the car too. But if I am at the cash register at the grocery store and I feel like some emotion is rising up in me and I feel like crying, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. It does not matter where I am. And the reason is because I think it's unkind to ourselves to place restriction on our feelings, because our feeling is what makes us human. It's what makes us us. And me, as an empath, as a highly sensitive person, I'm a feeler. I feel things very deeply. Feeling is a part of my being. It is a part of how I navigate this world. It is also one of my superpowers. And I think that there is this collective discomfort with emotion, with feeling, and including with crying. So I think I shared a little bit in the two stories that I offered around like how folks reacted to me. And I wanted to just share another micro story in terms of what I've noticed about how people have reacted to like this public display of emotion in the form of crying. I end each and every video with a prompt for journaling or reflection. And the prompt that I want to offer y'all for today is, what do your tears want to say to you that you have not let them? What do your tears want to say to you that you haven't let them? If this resonates with you, I wrote more about this form of emotional expression for me and just reclaiming my humanity and my emotional expression in this week's article. So I will share that below in case you are a reader and seeing it in black and white might resonate with you more. Remember to subscribe if you like what I'm putting down. If any of this resonates, I will be sharing more and more wisdom in the coming weeks. Well, that is all that I have for y'all for today. I look forward to connecting with y'all again soon. But in the meantime, reconnect with you. Peace, y'all.